Now,
There are advantages.
9 out of 10 worked almost flawlessly. Okay, so for our next speaker, please give a round of applause for Falco.
Hello. I feel all fancy with the behind the head mic. Hello. I'm Llewellyn Falco, and I'm an Agile technical coach, and that means I sit with programmers and I code with them. And I'm going to take you through just a little something I've been experimenting with over the last year. Just sort of a little technique. Beck is the guy who started extreme programming. It's one of the things that Agile grew out of. And he has this really nice quote. I had a mental image of knobs on a control board. Each knob was a practice that I knew worked well from experience. I would turn all the knobs up to 10 and see what happened. So there's a couple parts about this quote I really love. One is, I knew it worked well from experience. Not like it had been proved to me it worked well, or I had seen studies, but I had done it myself, and I just sort of observed, hey, this is working. And rather than taking the stuff that wasn't working and trying to figure out how to fix it, let's take the stuff that is working and see what happens if we just ridiculously crank it up. And so I did that with a thing I noticed was working earlier this year, and I just want to sort of share that experience with you guys. So we are going to go through an example of Fizzbuzz. Although actually, let me skip a little bit here in the interest of time. I'll come back to that. There's this whole wide world of Agile, right? And we zoom into that world, there's a whole bunch of technical practices. We are going to ignore every single one of these technical practices except for test-driven development. If we zoom into test-driven development, we'll see this red-green refactor pattern. We are going to ignore all of that except for refactoring. And if we zoom into refactoring, there are all these practices around refactoring. We are going to ignore all of those except for fake it till you make it. And if we zoom into fake it till you make it, we'll see triangulation and derivation. And we are going to ignore everything except for derivation. That is the only thing we are going to focus on for the next 20 minutes. And now let's go back to Fizzbuzz. So Fizzbuzz is a little practice problem that we do. We usually call them katas. You might have seen it before. Really doesn't matter if you have. In fact, you're in a better place if you haven't. But here's the way it works. If you ask someone to go do Fizzbuzz up to 20, you get this result. Why? Doesn't matter. The whole point of this technique is we are going to make a working program out of this without knowing why it works, but simply from getting a working example. And that's one of those things you can usually get when you talk to your project managers, when you talk to your business people, when you talk to your customers. It's very easy to get a working example. It is remarkably hard to get complete requirements. So, let's program. This is the first 20 of Fizzbuzz. This is C#. And we're going to do Fizzbuzz today. All right, so I have a unit test here. And what we're going to do is we're going to count Fizzbuzz to 20. And then we are going to verify the result. So, count Fizzbuzz to 20. Var result equals Fizzbuzz dot count to 20. Notice the utter lack of creativity. That is a benefit. Assert are equal what we expect to our result. And what do we expect? Well, we expect this. All right. So, I can clean up that English. It served its purpose. This does not yet compile. Now it does. It does not yet run or work, but we can actually test that, right? Like, let's run this. I put in a little, oh, now we might be able to hear stuff. I put on a little counter here so we can sort of keep track of what I'm doing and how long it takes. Red means failure. You're going to see that happen a couple of times today. I never know when, otherwise you wouldn't see it. And I have a continuous test runner on, meaning every time I save this, it's just going to run the test for me, right? That's just something you sort of get for free with ReSharper, meaning it's failing again. Crickets are failure. There's a different sound for success. So let's make this pass. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it down here, and I'm going to return that. Programming solved. That is very much the definition of fake it, right? This works. It works for 20. It only works for 20, but that is programming at its simplest. We are now going to take a journey of pulling this apart little by little until it becomes an actual program. And we're going to use these 5 ideas over here on the side. And the first one is going to be separate. Well, actually, the first one is going to be clean, right? Look at this ugliness that we have sitting here. Like, this file is all messed up with that file. Let's move it to its own file. That should not break anything. Maybe save happiness. That should have run test. Let's try that one more time. There we are. Does not break anything. All right. Now we have this big chunk of stuff here. This is a good place to start separating. We're going to tease this apart. And we're going to derive a problem from it. And we can either start at the beginning or we can start at the end. I'm going to start at the beginning because it's easier. As a general rule, like, people are like, go to the interesting stuff. Don't go to the interesting stuff. Go to the simple stuff. Get that solved. After you do the simple stuff, then do the next simpler stuff. The harder stuff actually becomes easier as you get the simple stuff out of the way. So we got one. Now it's separate. Yay. Now that it's separate, I can encapsulate it. So I'm just going to take that and pull it off as its own variable. What should we call that? I have no idea. How about 1? Oh, I forgot to save. I'm waiting for my happy test. All right. So now we've encapsulated it. Let's calculate it. 1 is just a magic piece of text. But it's actually the result of a string version of the number 1. That's like oddly subtle, but it's important. 1 I can't do anything with. 1.toString, that's a number I can add to, that I can change. I'm going to move a little bit faster than the actual sound, but it will make the crickets if I go bad. All right, so now I should be able to separate the next piece. After I separate it, I should be able to encapsulate it. How about comma? Now I should be able to separate the next piece. After I separate it, I should be able to encapsulate it. How about 2? After I encapsulate it, I can calculate it. And now I have duplication. Now I finally have enough stuff where I can start to automate something. Right? I got 1.toString, 2.toString. That I can automate. All right? That breaks this whole part here. So let's encapsulate that first. All right? So pull that out as first part. And let's start to encapsulate this. So I'm going to want something I can put this into. So let's make a parts. let's make a list here. I guess it's a list of string. That shouldn't break anything because I'm just introducing something that doesn't work yet. And then instead of putting this into 1, I can put this into parts. And get it out here. And now that I've done that, I can do the same thing with 2. And then now I can actually, since I'm just combining these two things, I can just do a string join on here. Join my comma with my parts. And now that I've done that, there's no reason to do that. We can just make a little for loop that goes from 1 all the way up to 2. It doesn't look like a lot of animation because basically we had 2 lines and now we kind of have 4. But that's the nature of programming. Ooh, that did not work. All right. We can actually see this in the here. I'm doing 1.toString in both places. That should really be a J. All right, so I've made it all the way up to 2 on automation. That's sort of as far as I can kind of take it right now. But look, I still got this big fakey thing here. So let's continue on down the line and separate this out. So we're going to take out Fizz, which is number 3, which is weird. If I just go to 3, that should fail on me because it should be 1, 2, 3. Yep. So, hey, fake it like the best of them. If j equals 3, ooh, that was Visual Studio trying to help me. Parts.add Fizz. Ooh, right. Buzz. No, Fizz, right? Oh, no. Else. We're going to add this part. Let's see if that works. There we go. By the way, I want to point this out. So far I've made 5 mistakes, and we're at about 15 minutes. All right, that's really cheap for mistakes. I make a lot more mistakes now that I have Agile in testing. I pay a lot less for those mistakes. I make a lot of them, but they just don't cost me. All right, so we did 4, or we did fuzz. We can do 4. We did 4. We can do 5, which is buzz. So I'm going to sort of take a piece out of here. And say 5 is buzz. Hopefully that works. That works. All right. Let's go to 6. 6 is also a Fizz. Well, that's easy enough. We can just this or j equals 6. We got 7 or 8. We can go to all the way to 8. Let's see if that works. There we go. All right. Let's go to Fizz. That is 9. All right. Let's see that work first. Now we have a pattern again. 3, 6, 9. Probably our next one's going to be 12. Now that I've seen that pattern, I can either just assume I know the right answer, which I've been known to do. I'm a bit arrogant like that. Or I can actually ask someone directly who knows the answer. Like I can, if I have into something I see in accounting, I can go to an accountant and be like, hey, it looks like you're doing this. Are you? If I'm doing something medical, I can go to the doctors and say, it looks like your patients follow this pattern. Are you? Right? When you ask them that question, they can answer it. They're not good at giving the requirement, but if you ask them a direct question, they're very good at answering it because they're quite knowledgeable about their domain. So they can say, hey, yes, it is actually when you divide by 3. So let's do a divide by 3. Cool. Buzz is happening at 10. Oh, okay, that looks like it's following the same pattern here for 5. So let's do divide by 5. Looks like we can get all the way up to 14 now. So let's do that. All right, now we got Fizzbuzz. That's going to be 15, so same pattern we're using before. J equals 15. Fizzbuzz. Cool. I can ask this as well, right? Was that just an equals 15 or was that a modulus 15? Right? In fact, they can tell me, yes, it's 15 because, and we again can separate this, it's actually 3 and 5. Which means I should be able to take this all the way to 20 now. All right, now this step is really important. At this moment, this is fake code. This works perfectly if you ask it to count to 20. Now I'm going to do all the real work and turn this into code that is actually real. That's normally what it looks like when we refactor our code and then we clean it up. The saying that Beck said is, first make the change easy and then make the easy change. We've done this with code bases. We had a 4-week deadline. We spent 3 weeks and 2 days cleaning the code. It did exactly the same thing. It was just much easier to read. We spent 1 day implementing the new change, and we came in 2 days early on our 4-week deadline. That's how this works out. If you have 6 hours to chop down the tree, spend the first 5 sharpening your saw. Make it easy to change, then make the easy change. It's still really messy, so let's clean this up a little bit. We can inline that. This really can get inlined at this point too. There's no real reason to do that. This actually inlines it just as well. This whole part here, this is really, let's pull this out as a variable and call this like part. And then let's separate that. Move that, move that out, move it out, there we go. And then I can move this part down. Maybe. Are you going to move down for me? Nope. Part equals, boom. Making this a little more functional. Please tell me that worked. Yay, because then I can just sort of pull that whole piece out. As convert number. All right, that's definitely a lot nicer. It's also 30 steps. I split that problem into 30 discrete steps. Not ahead of time. It'd actually be really hard to go to like your Trello task board and say, hey, take this epic story of Fizzbuzz and split it into 30 discrete tasks. It was easy enough to pull it out to 30, right? And I screwed up 6 times. I'm not sure how much time that cost me, but less than 20 minutes. So, just a quick recap. Separate. This is less fake than that. Right? I have a 1 I can now do something with. Before it was all one glob. Encapsulate. 1 is more fake than area code. This tells me why. Calculate. A solid hard-coded answer is less than a calculated answer from data. Automate. If you're counting from 5 to 10, count from 5 to 10. Don't just give me the numbers. And then finally, clean. If you do those things, you're going to do all your parts of your code, and you can take an example and figure out a robust solution. We wrote some stuff on mob programming. Thank you.
Wow, that was entertaining. Any questions? Everyone's still awake, right? No questions.
It's okay. I was the one asking questions another time, so.
Okay, then please give a round of applause for Falco.
Thank you.